Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to talk about a period in time when Jewish people came and basically created and co-opted all of these different like civil liberties types movements like the ACLU, the NAACP, the SPLC. The NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The SPLC is the Southern Poverty Law Center. The ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union. Now, when you hear somebody like me talk about this, somebody like me, stereotypically, you're just going to hear a one-sided story about Jews and stuff like that. And this, I'm not going to give you that story. I'm going to give you a more nuanced description of this, because what I see when I was researching this, because I expected it to not be nuanced, I expected it to be stereotypical, but it was not. I found that it was more of a mixed bag. It was a situation where one is not like the other. Okay, let's talk about the ones that do fit the stereotype first. Okay, and that is the NAACP and the SPLC. The one that didn't turn out to fit the stereotype was the ACLU, and we're going to talk about that one afterwards. So I put an article below about all three. So the first three references below are going to be about each of those three organizations and about their Jewish foundations. Now, the articles you're going to see are not from credible sources. Normally I use over the top, like supposedly credible sources. These are not credible sources at all. You'll just see the ACLU one is ACLU Heavy with Jews is the name of it. So these are kind of some racist articles that I put below. But the reason why I chose those is because they have all the information in it, and you can see who all the founders of the organization are. You can go check them on Wikipedia if you want, if you consider Wikipedia a credible source, and see if they were the Jewish founders of it. And the answer is going to be yes. So they were the only articles that I could find that had the right information in them. So that just is what it is. Now, the SPLC one follows with the NAACP one. I just want to read you some parts from this NAACP one because I think that it's interesting. Now, when I read this to you, you're going to see a lot of parentheses if you don't know what that is, right? There's Victor would know, a little thing you can put on your computer, on your browser. It's a little attachment, and it's called the coincidence detector. And in it, all the text of your any article you pull up, it'll put anybody who's Jewish with 3 parentheses on either side of their name. So you're going to see basically this entire article has just parentheses everywhere because it's all Jewish people running the NAACP and starting it. So if you don't have the coincidence detector, you should go get it. It's fantastic. And they only put people on there who they've researched and made sure that they're putting the parentheses on the right people, we'll say. Okay. So the NAACP, right? So the first major Jewish leader to join the charge was Rabbi Stephen Wise, the head of the Reform movement in the U.S. Soon, German-born Emil Hirsch, rabbi of Chicago, signed on. Eventually, dozens of mainstream Jewish leaders followed suit, and by 1911, became founding members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. So basically, there was this event that happened, and I don't know the particulars of it, but it was like a riot, and then 9 black people were dead, and the country was kind of outraged, you know? And so then they wanted to create, that's why it's so early, 1911, and they're trying to create these institutions to protect the rights of black people, right? And that is a good cause because, I mean, I don't want anybody to be, killed in riots in just a city or something, obviously. But that's, of course, for black people to do, not Jews to do, for black people, because they're gonna create this NAACP, and then they're gonna give it's disgusting, honestly, and funny, but every year they're gonna give out to an award to the best Negro in the country, right? So a bunch of Jews are gonna get together and decide who the most excellence in Negro is, and then they're gonna, I'm sorry, just get out of our business. If I was a black guy, I'd be like, nah, I'm cool. I don't want your Jew award. I don't want your white award. I want us black guys making a black. If I was black, that's what I would feel like, But anyways, let's talk about these Jews, okay? These early NAACP Jews had a variety of motives, including enlightened self-interest, as well as an altruistic desire to help America live up to its ideals of equality and justice. Okay, so I'm going to say fact check completely false on that, right? And I'm saying that for the NAACP and the SPLC, right? when we get to the ACLU, we're going to see that this sentence right here literally makes sense, right? Motivations, including enlightened self-interest as well as an altruistic desire to help America live up to its ideals of equality and justice. We're going to see that in the ACLU. We've never, ever in our lives seen that in the NAACP or the SPLC, right? So that's just a bunch of trash. Basically, the idea of, like when we get tomorrow, we're going to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. in the villain series. We're going to see if he's a villain or a hero. And no matter who you are, you're not going to like my conclusion in that one. But basically, he's got this Jewish main guy who's writing his speeches for him and this and that. And that guy's a full-on communist and this and that, right? So you got to understand at this time, all these Jews who are doing this stuff are frequently communists, right? At one point right around this time is when Jews decided to go full commie, but they decided to do that worldwide and not 100% of them, of course, but because we're nearing the Russian Revolution right here, right? At this time that this is founded. And then basically all the Jews are a lot of them are going to go for communism. Anyways, and so the idea behind this, though, creating these institutions is in order as a minority to ensure the safety of your group, you want to weaken the power of the most powerful groups, right? And so the most powerful group in the United States was white people. So you want to weaken and disintegrate that culture to the point where, I mean, just the other day, what was it? It was last night. I was watching This Week in Culture with Fleckus Talks. You should check it out on Rumble only. And yeah, it was the most recent one. And then there was this guy up there and he's like, yeah, I think it was over the basketball player who's the white girl. And he was up there and he's like, yeah, I've been watching women's basketball more than I ever have, and I just feel so guilty because it's this white woman, you know, she's just so good, and I feel so bad, and I don't even want to say that I like watching her because there's so much racial division in this country. It's just going to heap on more. And it's like you've got this white man who's just there's a shell. He's nothing human is left of him. He's just absolutely been hollowed out. And we got movements like this, ideologies. There's all types of ideologies that have got to make that man just the most pathetic piece of garbage his ancestors have ever seen, you know? But it's movements like this that it's just to break down the power of majority. But it's easy to do because when you have a majority group that goes and kills 9 black people in a riot, even I mean, if the majority group is outraged, punishes the people who did it, this and that, because in my opinion, I want to be an extremely strong majority group, but then I want to act with morality and integrity, especially in the way treating minorities or whoever else, you know, foreigners who are tourists, like you to get the most excellent treatment. Even though we have all this power, that's how I would like to run it, not just take advantage of people. Okay, so one of these early members was Louis Marshall, founder of the American Jewish Committee, who proclaimed that that when he joined, he would fight the Ku Klux Klan just as hard if it spared the Jews and focused only on, quote, Negroes or any other part of the population, end quote. I mean, I could have just Googled this guy and just told you why he was a complete piece of trash, but you could just guess. Okay. Another was Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter, who helped draft NAACP legal briefs. Then Jacob Schiff, banker and community leader, joined the NAACP board. I have to Google this right now to see if that's related to our Schiff. Okay, I just paused it just to like literally look this up. And Adam Schiff in Congress, I tried to go down a rabbit hole right now of his Jewish genealogy, but his father's Ed Schiff and his grandfather is Jacob Schiff. I can't say 100%. It's this. I'll put it on the screen. I'll research it a little bit more and I'll put it on the screen. I'll bet you this is Adam Schiff's grandfather, right? Banker and community leader joining the NAACP board. I mean, just they're great people. Okay. Early donors included Julius Rosenwald, CEO of Sears Roebuck. So there's a Jewish CEO of Sears Roebuck in 1911. Lillian Wald, suffragist and founder of the Henry Street Settlement. Herbert Lehman, Democratic governor of New York in the 1930s. And the son of German Jewish immigrants, served on the NAACP Executive Committee. Okay, so you could just kind of see a glimpse of what it's like when it's a movement for, it's not a minority movement either. It's not for Hispanics. It's for the advancement of colored people. And it's run by all Jews. Okay. I mean, it's just trash. Okay, whatever. So anyways, now let's talk about the ACLU, right? I was going to try to lump the ACLU in the same category. And then I realized when it first started, it wasn't like that at all, right? So I put an article below, right? And it's about the Skokie incident, And basically you got the ACLU, which is formed in 1920. And in 1977, right, is when the decision is going to be handed down, the Skokie decision. But basically, you have Jews defending Nazis because they care about American civil liberties, And so it's not at all like the NAACP. Now the end story of the NAACP is that eventually, I don't know what year, but they were taken over by blacks and the Jews were all kicked out. So after a certain point, blacks ran the pro-black organization, and good for them. They should. But in this situation, 57 years after an institution is established, and it's Jews supporting Nazis because they care about freedom of speech. Well, that's something, right? That's something genuine, And so let me tell you a little bit about the case real fast. Basically, Skokie, Illinois is outside of Chicago, and there was a Nazi movement, and they were basically wanting to go do a protest type thing. And I think they were protesting for free speech, which is kind of funny. But they wanted to do it in this Skokie neighborhood that had a bunch of Holocaust survivors in it, right? So the Holocaust survivors then go and do all these protests, demand that the local government says, no, they can't come because they're Nazis. Local government says they can't come because they're Nazis. The head Nazi, there's 25 to 50 of these guys, right? The head Nazi calls up the ACLU Illinois branch, gets this guy on the phone whose name is David. So the lawyer, the Jewish lawyer, who's another Holocaust survivor, is David Goldberger, right? And he wrote the article that's the fourth reference below. And basically, he gets a call from the head Nazi guy, and the guy's just talking normal, and he's like, and the Jewish guy's like, man, it's just a regular old dude, And then apparently he says from his article that the Nazi guy went off into a tirade about Jews, an anti-Semitic tirade, whatever. So the Jewish guy says he'll take the case because it's a legitimate First Amendment case, And at one point, they asked the Nazi guy, they're like, what about the religion of your lawyer? And he basically just kind of said like, oh, well, I don't know about what his religion was. Way more important is the constitutional protections of the First Amendment, being. So basically, the Jews in the ACLU protected the Nazis because it was a legitimate free speech. Are you allowed to go out there and speak under the First Amendment of the United States? The answer is yes. Whether you're a Hebrew, what were those people called? The Black Hebrews. I can't remember their name. Oh, Black Hebrew Israelite or whatever they're called. Like whatever. Like and yell obscenities at the the MAGA kid. When during the drumming incident, he was in the background doing that. Like whatever. Under the first, and in my country as supreme leader, no, you can't do anything. But in this country, yes, you should be able to. And so that the Jewish guy would go fight for his rights is amazing. Then you get the Skokie ruling, which is such an important First Amendment ruling. That there's been tons of big rulings after that have kind of just been amendments of Skokie. They've kind of just added on to it, refined it, defined it more, And so it was this huge case that wouldn't have come about if a Jewish Holocaust survivor hadn't been defending the free speech of a Nazi, right? So you can kind of say that that's a pretty legitimate organization up to that point. Now they would never be caught dead defending a Nazi, And they're just completely co-opted and subverted and to tell that they're not about civil liberties at all. They're about political directions and desires and stuff like that. Anyways, I thought it was interesting. You could read books about this stuff and it won't really bring up Skokie, They'll just tell you, but I could look at the ACLU and I could show you all the Jewish donors and the Jewish directors, but they defended the Nazis, And so I think that they were way more of a legitimate of an organization than these other ones, And that a bunch of Jews founded the NAACP doesn't mean that a black-directed NAACP of today can't go and do good things for the black community. I hope they do, and I wish them the best in doing so. I know today the SPLC is complete trash, right? And the ACLU, they're just both complete trash. And that's where we're at with that. So I just wanted to cover this because I'm going to reference this tomorrow in the villain episode on Martin Luther King Jr., where we're going to find out if he's a villain or not. Everybody's going to be angry at me, and that's what I got for you. Hope to see you tomorrow.